Therefore, sadly, the stigma of mental health and suicide can get in the way of people asking for help. Many people put on a brave face, even if their mood is very low. A healthcare worker is in a unique position to recognize the signs of someone who is struggling with their mental health or who is thinking about suicide. They can ask gentle yet direct questions. They can take the time to listen, and they can show empathy, offer ongoing support and follow-up. A few words can make a world of difference.
Recording in progress.
Hi everyone, welcome to the 13th Third Thursday talk, 40s. Okay, and this time we are talking about Power Your Mind. My name is Muhammad Abdullah from the Rotary Club of Pantai Valley, and this time it is hosted by the Rotary Club of Pantai Valley with our Vice President Jude Tan as the chairman for this committee. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you call that? We will have two speakers tonight with one moderator, and then they will be introduced by our moderator, Eric. And then if you have any questions, please put in the chat group, and then we will answer it later. So in the meantime, you can please unmute yourself, and then, well, you can put on your video if you need to, but in the photography session, we will need you to put on your video. So ladies and gentlemen, okay, thank you for coming. And now I would like to introduce you to our moderator. Okay, who is he? Well, his name is Eric Dumier. I call him a Frenchman living in Thailand now, staying in Singapore, working in Singapore and staying in Malaysia. He's an international. He's the founder and director of DCS Private Limited, the aim of which is to advise international, multinational, and regional corporations on digital transformations, IT strategy, and cybersecurity. He is an established practitioner with a solid 30-year track record of delivering strategic transformation projects and innovative solutions to multinational clients. Eric has a comprehensive background in IT strategy, cybersecurity, business development and administration, project management, and IT service management, serving various multinational corporations across Asia Pacific, Europe, and the Americas, while multiple industries, including financial services, retail, oil and gas, telecom, healthcare, and others. A significant part of Eric's experience was acquired in acquiring or consulting as an essential partner. He advised global clients on IT strategy and digital transformation, leading large, complex transformation and deployment programs, enabling new innovative business models. Beyond these professional activities, Eric is involved in charity work, teaching programming and computer literacy classes to refugees and coaching young adults from impoverished backgrounds. He has a passion for scuba diving and photography. Eric holds a master's degree in electronics and computer science from École Centrale de Lyon, France. He holds certification as HRDF trainer, Certified Information System Security Professional, CISSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional, CCSP. Eric is a member of Rotary Club of Pantai Valley, and currently he is the International Director for the club. Over to you, Eric.
Good evening, everyone. So, just to introduce the theme for this evening, the National Health and Mobility Survey NHMS conducted by the Ministry of Health in Malaysia in 2015 revealed that the prevalence of mental health problems among those 16 years, 16 and above, is 29.2%, which means that 1 in 3 Malaysians have mental health issues, with the highest prevalence among those aged between 16 and 19 years old, as well as those from low-income families. So today it is estimated that globally, the prevalence of major depressive disorders rose 28%, and anxiety disorders rose 26% as a direct result of the COVID pandemic. It is clear that we need to seriously look at how we can help ourselves and our communities cope with these pressures on the mental health situation. So today we will focus on how a COVID survivor pulled himself through this with the insight and strategies on how we can build our mental fitness to cope with the challenges ahead of us as the country and the rest of the world moves into the endemic approach to COVID. So let me introduce our first speaker. So Christopher Jude Anthony is age 55. He is from Johor Bahru. He lost his dad at the tender age of 8, while his mum raised his 2 sisters and himself. And they brought them back to KL, where Christopher continued with his secondary education at La Salle in PJ. He moved on then to Montfort Boys Town, where he took up a 3-year intensive course in graphic design school skills on education for living. He then moved on to work in many companies related to printing and graphic design. Given the opportunity, one day he decided to move on and embark on a totally different career. He went on into quality assurance and had a great opportunity again to work in many Japanese automotives and electronic manufacturing companies. In 2005, with the encouragement and proposal from a close church acquaintance, he moved into bereavement care services, particularly for the Christian sector, catering to various denominations. Eventually, he saw the need to cater as well for the other faith and traditions. Journeying through with grieving families in a very tangible way, especially in their time of loss, gave him a passion to do what he did differently from just doing a job per se. He found wholesome satisfaction and up to this day continued to journey with families in their hour of loss and need. He's married with 2 boys and a girl aged between 21 and 28. All of the 3 of them work for the company now. His 2 sons are qualified morticians trained to embalm and preserve the dead for funeral rites according to their respective faith. He continues with diligence and utmost passion in service to his calling with his chosen tagline for Trinity Funeral Services, simplifying life's most vulnerable decision. So let me hand over the floor to Christopher Jude Anthony.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's an honor and an opportunity given by the Rotary Club of Pantai Valley for me to share on this topic of COVID, developing mental fitness, and how I myself went through this struggle and pulled myself up into being and to recover from where I was when I was first admitted. I think I don't need to introduce, Eric has already done that part, but to the listeners out there, please allow me to share the little of my experience that brought me into the wilderness and gave me fresh ideas and thoughts of who I am, what I am, and the direction I will lead for others who will have the opportunity to think positive and move forward despite the fact of the pandemic that is very serious and affected many of us, not only in Malaysia but throughout the world. Now let me start my story of how I got this COVID. I was on May the 27th. When May 27th, I was, upon going to work, I realized that I had fever. And I just felt uncomfortable, and I decided to take a drive to visit a doctor friend of mine in Putrajaya. And my driver brought me there, and when I reached there, I went in, and the doctor did a check on me, and he confirmed and said, you have COVID. I was just shocked. Okay, least did I expect myself, because of the nature of work that I do. And when the doctor told me this, I was just a bit troubled. And the next thing I knew, doctor told me, you go back home and just wait for KKM to call you, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia. But before I went to the hospital, to this clinic in Putrajaya, I just decided, something told me, go for your haircut. I went for my haircut, and soon after haircut, that's when I developed this fever, and I thought to myself, okay, I better go and check with this friend of mine, doctor friend of mine in Putrajaya. After having got this news that I have COVID, he said, Jude, go back home and rest. Take it easy, don't worry too much. And I went back home, very troubled. Didn't tell my staff. Yeah, and I returned back home. Took my bath and I went off to lie down. Just about an hour after that, I had a call from KKM, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, telling me that in about 2 hours' time, the ambulance will come to take you away to PPUM. Okay, so please pack, get ready, and that made me even more troubled. I told my wife, I broke the news to my children who were at work, and I just went, silently packed my things in a small haversack bag and waited anxiously, just wondering what's going to happen. Then about 7:30 also, the ambulance arrives with their beacon lights on. My whole neighborhood, I live in a gated and guarded community, my whole neighborhood is awakened by the lights of course, when the ambulance reached my house, my wife told the ambulance guy, please switch off the lights. And I was brought into the ambulance. I just walked into the ambulance like a normal person. I walked into the ambulance. There was another patient there, also picked up for COVID, and together we went. I was just shocked. I just didn't know what to think of. I went with an open mind, and upon reaching the hospital at PPUM, I was transferred from, as soon as I got down, I was put on a stretcher and rolled into the hospital proper, where various inspections were done on me. And soon after, they brought me to the ward. I don't know what time was that, I cannot really recall. Probably about 2 hours or 3 hours later. That was the end. I couldn't remember what took place after that. I just felt I went into the wilderness and that was it. I went blank and never knew what happened until about after 8 weeks or 7.5 weeks to be exact. I got up and I looked around. I didn't have my glasses with me, so my vision was very, very blur. I could see people moving around, nurses and doctors all with their PPE. I didn't even have my phone. And when I got up, and I was just in a daze, but I figured out there was, slowly I began to realize that I fantasized into many things that took place. I seemed to have a flashback and trying to recall what happened. Oh, I remember I went into a sports car. I remember I went into a cave. I remember, and things were rather very sheepish to me. Feeling a sense of, I don't know whether to have this sense of gratitude or to have this sense of fear, but I just kept cool. It was like a dream. And soon after that, doctors came, nurses came, and they started to whisper to me and slowly talk to me and told me, you know, Christopher, what has happened to you? They addressed me as Christopher, that's my first name. And I slowly began to experience joy, a sense of joy and well-being that I'm alive. Nurses began to tell me a little bit about what took place, what happened to me. And of course for me, it was what month is it now? What day is it now? What time is it now? I was just totally lost. And of course, the first things I asked the nurses in the hospital was for my family. For my wife, for my children. They couldn't give me much information, but I was lost. I was broken. I just wanted to hear some familiar voices, and this gave me a lot of pain. I just wanted to speak to especially to my children, to my eldest son. But there was no means of communication because my phones were taken away by children as soon as I was admitted. So but they said, the nurses told me, don't worry, your children will call and we'll put you through video call. So I began to be able to speak to my son slowly from a totally different number that was given. And then I discovered a little more about what was happening to me. Soon after that, the doctors told me that that I had a wound, a sacral wound on my back, and I could begin to feel the pain. I knew that I was intubated in ICU and was put in different positions, including prone position, for at least for about 7.5 weeks. And after that, my craving was to just go back home, to see my family, and I began slowly craving for certain things, especially food, which was the thing that I loved so much. Craving for food, craving for people I wanted to meet so badly, especially the members of my family. And there's so many things that were running in my mind, my business, my friends, my associates, my loved ones. Then, after I recovered and doctors gave me permission to be transferred to a rehabilitation center, I was transferred to Region Hospital. And from Region Hospital, after 2 weeks of rehabilitation, I was transferred again to PPUM because I had bleeding in my stool. But God be praised, like in all things, I just thought of the good things in life. I had a passion for people. I had a passion in the work that I did, especially with grieving members of the family whom I would help to host or to run funeral services for them. So I did it very personally, very privately for families. And this is something that I experienced. And during this pain and struggle and knowing that I have had COVID, I had more reason to feel comforted and to feel the joy of wanting to live again, to be positive and to put everything aside and tell myself, never mind. I've been given a chance by my Creator to live and to make a difference again. If I'm given this chance, why not make a difference in the life, the second chance that I will be given to live?
This
Now
is quite a story, Christopher. You told us that you were in the coma for 8 weeks. Is that correct?
About 8 weeks, 7.5 weeks exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's quite a time. So when you became conscious, do you remember when you reached your lowest point?
Yes, I did.
Tell us
During
about
the lowest, funny thoughts came into my mind. Especially knowing what COVID could do to someone. And prior to me getting COVID, I experienced many COVID cases. I didn't have the opportunity to facilitate many deaths of COVID patients, but you know, the wakes for COVID is none at all. Straight from the hospital to their place of crematorium or to the burial grounds. So all this gave me, it created some form of fear in me, but at the same time I told myself, no, I will move forward and see what I can do to think positive and make my mind free of this worry.
So you
That was-
decided basically that you could not go down this negative slope, right? So
No.
what made you do that? When did you take the decision to heal yourself?
I kept my faith very much alive. Not that I'm a religious person, but I kept trusting to my Maker, whom I would always pray to and ask Him, God, if you give me another chance, I'll make my life more meaningful. And that gave me a sudden jerk and a push to make a difference, to live life differently if I was given that opportunity, Eric.
So you had a long path to recovery, a path which is not finished yet. So
Yes.
what were you thinking, or what are you thinking and saying to yourself that keeps you on the recovery path?
Okay. Very, very clearly was members of the family that gave me so much of hope, that gave me so much of direction, that members of my family, my friends, those whom are associated with me through church networks, those who have been associated with me through the work that I've done with them in funerals related services. This gave me reason and meaning and so much of hope and joy that I would recover. And along with that, the other passion that I had was with food. I would travel miles to eat good food. And I had this craving and this desire to just want to eat the things that I miss very much in life. And this gave me joy. I would ask my family, my sons, my mother, my sisters, can you get me this? Even if I didn't have a fantastic appetite. But the thought of having it right in front of me and I could just take 1 or 2 mouths gave me so much of joy and the reason to go on. And I would just ask, and my family would tell me, you wouldn't eat. I said, never mind, I still want it. And friends would just, they are not allowed to visit me, but they'll just come to the hospital or they'll just send it to the counter and get the nurses or someone to send it to me, to my room.
Families, friends, and food. But how did you cope in the hospital, since the family and friends could not really come to see you, and food in the hospital is not that great, as we all know, right? So
Yes.
how did you manage?
I cried. I had sleepless nights. I would call my son as soon as I got a number, I would call my son and cry to him because I couldn't sleep. There are 3 shifts in the hospital, and all the 3 shifts, I had a traumatic experience in the hospital, in the COVID ward with 20 patients, and I could hardly help myself. I could hardly lift my finger to feed myself, so I wouldn't eat. I would just take some biscuits. I get my cleaning up, or they call it wiping up, at about 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock every morning with cold water. And I just cannot sleep in anticipation of the nurses coming at that time to wind your screen and to wipe you up with cold water. Gave me the shivers. Just wanting and waiting for the doctors to come in the morning and to tell me, Christopher, this is your progress. And I'll tell the doctors every day, 6 to 7 doctors will be surrounding me, professors from PPUM and UMMC. And I just look at the doctors and the joy on their faces, even when they have to tell me something, I just smile at them and I feel so comforted. It gave me a totally different feeling about COVID, because I found in the faces of these doctors, I could see smile and I could see me moving forward. Even having known the situation that I'm in, the doctors told me very clearly what I'm going through. And looking at the size of my wound, my sacral wound on my buttocks, that made me even more frightened. But each time the doctors came around my bed, not one, 5 to 6 of them, I felt so overjoyed.
Christopher, your story is particularly touching because we all know someone in our families or with friends who had COVID over the past period. Some of our friends, some of our family members, unfortunately, did not survive. And I think that this pandemic is not still completely over. So this is still a danger to quite a number of people. I'm going to open the floor to the audience for any questions that they might want to ask, and waiting for questions to appear on the chat. Please post your questions to Christopher on the chat. So let me also understand, the role of your families and friends. How did they support you during this ordeal?
Well, because of the fact that I was intubated and I had a tracheostomy done on me, I could hardly speak. Now it's much better, but I could hardly speak and I get tired very fast as I talk. Many of my friends would call my wife and my family regularly to find out my progress. And they just wanted to see me on a video call, to see my progress and feel overjoyed seeing me alive and with so much of hope. There was a time when the doctors gave up and told my family, Jude, Christopher won't make it tonight. And I won't make it tonight. But
hard to hear.
Yeah, but I saw the video which my family showed me. One thing that keeps ringing in my mind, something that I will always tell people in my faith. One caption which comes from a note from the Bible, which says, for you, Christopher, or I would say to many people, surely goodness and kindness has followed you all the days of your life, and you are certain that you will, sooner or later, dwell in God's presence. So this gave me reason to understand that I had a purpose, and I was so lifted and overjoyed when some people whom I didn't even know sent messages, and my wife or my children would read to me these messages. This support and emotional strength made a lot of difference in my life, made a tangible difference in my life. And I told myself, I need to do more on this earth.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question from the floor, which is basically, what were the symptoms that you had when you were basically hospitalized?
Oh, mine was very straightforward. It was just feeling feverish. I was feeling feverish, different from the fever that I would have during other occasions. But this particular fever just gave me a funny feeling. I couldn't smell. I felt that I didn't have appetite. So that's what got me worried. And I didn't want to go to my normal doctors that were around closer to me. I chose to go to this personal doctor friend of mine who was very close to me, and he revealed the truth and told me. And I was so afraid, honestly. I told him, can you avoid disclosing this to anybody? He said, no, I can't do that. I have to notify KKM. That's a requirement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my driver just drove me back. I was so silent. I didn't want to reveal it to my driver either. And I just went back home. I broke the news to my wife, and everybody got a bit shivery though. But I just went and tried to sleep, just waiting anxiously for the call. And that's when I got the call. Yeah.
What was the first thought that came to your mind when you got out of coma?
Oh, the first thought of what came to my mind was, I just desired to see my family. Instantaneously, I was trying to see if my memory was still good. Did I recall things? So I tested myself. And then when the nurses came around, I asked them questions, but they couldn't give me a definite answer because they were not very much in touch with my children. And they didn't want to tell me much either. Simply because they didn't want me to get anxious. I'm just coming out of coma. But I was just in a daze. And many things, like I said, came as a flashback to me. I was worried. I just desired so much to meet my family. I wanted to chat with one of them. That was my utmost desire at that point. Not so much about food, but at that point it was my desire to speak to my family. That's to my wife and my mother, my two sisters and my children. Yeah.
So one last question from the floor. So so it's more than 5 months since you had your infection. So how do you feel now? How do you still have some effects lingering on? I understand that your voice is still also in recovery. That's more about coming from intubation, I guess.
I'm very much better from what I was. I got a full-time caregiver who looks after me. I got support, emotional and spiritual, and all kinds of support from people from all walks of life, some of whom I don't even know. Seems to me like the whole world knows about me and what happened to me. And that support seems so much of strength to me. And I've recovered fairly well. The sacral wound that was initially there after I was discharged from PPUM and went to region, and the last hospital was Subang Jaya Medical Center, where 4 doctors attended to me, the cardiac surgeon, Dr. Kannan, the wound surgeon, Dr. Mohana, the gastroenterologist, Dr. Datin Sharmila, and Dr. ENT, Dr. Puravi, did an awesome job on me. And I would say I'm 80 to 90% recovered, except for my wound, which is slowly closing up. And doctors told me, Jude, we know you're very anxious. You are on the move, but take it easy. Go slow. Okay? But that itself gives me a lot of encouragement. And I'm on the road. I'm driving and doing everything else that I would do before I got COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Except that I cannot sit down for too long. I have to be on a tilted position even as I sleep. But I'm recovered a whole lot.
Okay, that's quite an ordeal that you went through, and we all understand and we all appreciate this. And it's probably giving you a different perspective on life. If you could summarize in just a few words, what you have, what you have gone through and what you've learned during this really tough period of your life, what would you say?
The thing that always echo in my mind, if I could quote the words of Stephen Grallett, always plays on my mind. The words of Stephen Grallett, who says this, that inspires me. Stephen Grallett says this: I shall walk this way but once. If there's any good that I can do, or any kindness that I can show, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. So these very words of Stephen Grallett echoes in my mind continuously. What you give in life is what you get. So my passion for people with a sincere relationship in doing good, in showing compassion, God has been compassionate to me. And this is the same compassion I will show to the rest of the world and people who I need. Even if I'm unable to, but I'll use all my might and my strength and journey with anyone and everyone, irrespective of race, creed, or color.
Thank you so much for these words of wisdom as well as hope. Thank you again for your testimony about your ordeal and your recovery, your ongoing recovery. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you.
From all the audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So after this testimony, we are going to move towards our second speaker, Anthony Pinto. Anthony is going to speak about mental fitness. Let me introduce Anthony first. Anthony has more than 15 years of experience as a meta coach, NLP and mindfulness practitioner and trainer. He delivers his programs with passion and enthusiasm. All his programs are designed to empower and equip individuals, organizations, and communities to perform at peak performance levels consistently. He helps clients to recognize their unlimited capacity, to adopt a mindset of infinite possibilities, and to execute their plans with an attitude of do whatever it takes to get to their goals without violating the laws of nature and the rights of their fellow human beings. He achieves these objectives with his clients through 1. Mastering self in self-awareness and self-management. 2. Mastering relationships through social awareness and relationship management. 3. Mastering abundance through inner self-work and mind empowerment. Currently, Anthony is facilitating a 6-week pilot program called Mental Fitness, where he provides tools to help participants explore how they can overcome their challenges by building their mental muscle. So I'm handing now over to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Eric. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you guys here. And yeah, that was a remarkable story by Christopher Jude. And, it does take a lot of mental muscle to come through what he has and also come tonight to share that with us and for us to learn something from his experience. And I hope that in the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we could put some frame around that and give you some very simple techniques on how to build that mental fitness muscle so that you can handle challenges accordingly. Yeah. So let me share my screen. So my intention this evening is basically to, in the short time that we have, to give you that flavor of what it takes to build mental fitness, and how to then build on that foundation for the longer term. The topic for our session tonight was Power Your Mind, Developing Mental Fitness in the Face of Unexpected Challenges. Good news and bad news. Developing mental fitness is the good news. In the face of unexpected challenges, it's the wrong time to develop mental fitness. If you don't have it then you're not going to have it, yeah? So you really actually develop mental fitness before the unexpected challenges show up in your place. So what stresses have you experienced over the past 24 months, given the COVID pandemic and technology disruptions? Do you feel that your negative emotions have hijacked you once too many times? Do you wish that you could get the results you want in your life with much less struggle and stress? Because as long as we are struggling a lot and having a lot of stress to get what we want, there's only one message we get from that, that is that we are not mentally fit enough. So let me tell you this story about these two wolves that this chief of the Cherokee tribe talked a long time ago. He told his grandson that there's a battle of two wolves inside us all. One is evil. It is anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, lies, inferiority, and ego. And the other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, and truth. And the little boy looked at the chief and said, "Yeah, who is going to win this battle?" And the chief said, "The wolf that wins, the one you feed." So which one are we feeding in our lives? I started my journey on this battle with the wolves in my head many years ago. And, that was about, I think, 2004 when I started my journey. What you see here is a picture of me when I was about 3.5 years old. And then the next picture was when I was 55 plus years in 2007, after completing a 1-week meditation program with Deepak Chopra Center. Why am I showing you this picture? I hope that by the end of tonight's session, you will go back and pick out a picture of your childhood, child self, and look at it and realize that that's who you are, the essence that you are, and without all the negativity on yourself that has made you who you are today. So you can get back to the full essence. And that's the reason why I'm showing you the picture, that we are all built with that full essence of goodness and immensity. So let's do a quick poll here. If Mahin can help me with this. Over the past week, how much of your time in percentage term did you spend with your negative emotions? Was it less than 25%, 25 to 49%, 50 to 75%, or more than 75%? How much of your time in the past week, in percentage terms, do you spend with your negative emotions? Mahin, could you launch the poll? Is Mahin there?
Yeah.
Yes, Anthony, the poll is launched already.
You
Is
see?
it?
Yes.
I don't see the.
Anthony, maybe you want to read it out to Anthony.
Okay, once they stop, I will share with you. Okay. We
Okay.
are still having answers coming in. We have 61 out of 104 participants who have answered.
Okay, I need to stop my share to.
Yep. Still coming in, 65. We have 70. Okay, another 10 seconds and we will stop and share the results. Okay, still coming in. All right, we have 74, last 5 seconds. Okay, we end and we're going to share. Are you able to see, Anthony?
Yes. So
Okay.
we've got about 53% spend less than 25% in the negative emotions. about 34% in the next category, 7%. And okay, excellent, excellent. Yeah. Oops, what happened here? Okay, I stopped share and I'm trying to get my share again. I can't seem to get it up. Okay. So in the poll just now, we saw that, about 34% spend about, I guess 53% spend less than 25% in the negative emotions, and the other 47% spend more than 25% in the negative emotion, right? The question is, how much of positive emotion do we need to ensure that we are mentally fit? How much is enough? Some people are just overly positive, and that might not be very useful. And some are, people who are always negative all the time, right? Well, what they've done, this is work by Barbara Fredrickson and Losada. Barbara Fredrickson is one of the leading researchers on positive emotions. And they found that the positivity ratio, the ratio of positive emotions to negative emotions is 3:1. So that's Barbara Fredrickson. She's a professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where she's a distinguished professor of psychology. Oops. What happened? Okay, so the tipping point is 3:1. Now, when you, on a weekly basis or a daily basis, you spend 3 times more time in the positive emotion than the negative emotion, then we say that you're at the flourishing range. That means, look at overall well-being. That means you're in the well-being area, basically. Now, what they found generally was that most people were spending their time in the 2:1 ratio, which means there's not enough, basically. So they're languishing, which means they're really not all that happy, but they're not in mental illness. But those who are doing about 1:1 ratio, these are people who are in the mental illness category, basically. So there is a measure on how we can determine whether we have the positive emotions or not, and that's working for us or not, yeah? So then what is mental fitness then? Today I'm going to share with you a very simple process of how to build that mental fitness. So I'm taking a definition from one specific author. And he says that mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. Now, what's important in this definition is that it must be, doesn't give any connotation. Mental fitness cannot give any connotation to any kind of mental illness or mental health issues, basically. Yeah, so that's the main thing. Mental fitness must also be able to be understood by the general community, such that we understand, like, physical fitness. What is physical fitness? We know what physical fitness is because we know how to get physically fit, exercise and going to the gym and do whatever we can, right? So mental fitness needs to be understood in the same way. And mental fitness must also be measurable. And there must be a way of building mental fitness. And you can see now there are yardsticks to measure it. And I'm going to also tonight give you some other yardsticks to measure mental fitness. Because when you are mentally fit, then it will be having impact on your peak performance, on your peace of mind and wellness, and healthy relationships, as we saw just now, as far as your well-being is concerned. And, I'm drawing from Shazad Shamin. He's the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Positive Intelligence, and he lectures on positive intelligence at Stanford University. He's a preeminent C-suite advisor, and Shazad has coached hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. His background includes a PhD in studies in neuroscience, in addition to a BA in psychology, an MS in electrical engineering, and an MBA from Stanford. So what is this based on, this particular aspect of building mental fitness? It's based on 4 key areas of science: positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and performance science. That's what we call positive psychology. So research includes results from hundreds of CEOs and the executive teams. It's from Stanford students, from world-class athletes, from 500 participants from 50 countries, and from many young president organization families and forums. And they all summarize it in the book called Positive Intelligence. And from the factor analysis, what they found was there's really only 3 core muscles at the root of mental fitness. The first one is the saboteur-interceptor muscle. Second one is your sage perspective and 5 powers muscle. And the third one is your self-command muscle. And I'll go to that very quickly over this session. Yeah. So mental fitness is how to grow the 3 core mental muscles to thrive in challenging times. And let's talk about the first one, the saboteur-interceptor muscle. Now, just now we talked about the 2 wolves, right? The evil wolf and the good wolf, right? So the evil wolf represents the saboteurs. What are saboteurs? Saboteurs are thinking habits that we develop as a child for coping with what we were encountering. But, you know, what they found in this research was that there's not 1 wolf, there's 10 wolves, yeah? Whereas sage is the one that gives you the positive emotions. So there's 10 wolves involved that we need to deal with, the saboteurs, right? There's a master wolf and a gang of 9 that's going with him, basically, yeah? Whereas in the sage, we're talking about 5 sage powers. So the saboteur or the negative thinking lives in the brainstem, the limbic system, and parts of the left brain, basically. Whereas your sage or the positive emotion area lives in the middle prefrontal cortex, your empathy circuitry, and parts of your right brain. So the saboteurs motivates you to negative emotions, fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity. And your sage motivates you through positive emotions, empathy, curiosity, creativity, and passion. Now, saboteurs might generate success, but not happiness. And the sage generates your highest success and sustained happiness. And that's a very clear distinction there. Then you ask, are negative emotions good for you or not? What do you think? Are negative emotions good or not? Well, let's find out. Is pain good for you? Let's say you put your hand on a hot stove. If you're not feeling any pain, what will happen? You'd leave your hand there, right? And then you get it burned completely. So pain is good in the sense that it tells you, wait a minute, I'm feeling something that's not good for me, and you can take your hand off the hot stove. And negative emotions are just the same. Only helpful for 1 second as an alert signal. So if you have a negative emotion, it's an alert signal that you're in the saboteur mode, not in the positive emotion or sage mode, basically. So staying in negative emotions hurt your ability to see clearly and respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser focus action. Yeah. So negative emotions all come from the saboteurs. So I said there were 10 of them, and the master saboteur is the judge. And who is the judge? The judge finds fault with self, others, and circumstances. Have you had a time when you know you screw up on something that you do, and you tell yourself, idiot, why did you do that? You know? So we are beating ourselves up very often, right? And of course, sometimes when we beat ourselves up, we also like to beat others up, because then we can't be the only loser in town, right? So we also, criticize others a lot, and we also make judgments on circumstances. We say things are good or things are bad, or this event is good or this event is bad, right? So we're always finding fault with stuff out there. And it causes much of our disappointment, anger, regret, guilt, shame, and anxiety. And it also activates all the other 9 wolves or 9 accomplished saboteurs. The judge does that, basically. Yeah. So these are the gang of 9 that's supporting the judge. And some of you may be able to relate to some of these: the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, hypervigilant, pleaser, stickler, avoider, victim, hyper-rational. These are all the saboteurs we are dealing with. Now, we all have these saboteurs. The main one is the judge. But for some of us, either one or two or three of these are stronger than the rest in terms of the saboteur. Like for me, one of my strongest saboteurs is a stickler, which means that I pay a lot of attention to detail, and sometimes paying too much attention to detail can delay decision making. And and when I sometimes don't get details, it can cause a negative emotion also. Take the controller, for example. The controller wants everything done his way. And if he doesn't get his way, he gets upset, he gets frustrated. And that's got a negative emotion again, right? And then the victim is someone who, wants to get attention but can't find a way of getting attention, so they go into the victim mode. So when they don't get attention, they get very negative emotions happening. So there is a website you can go to get this your own saboteur assessment, and I'll give it to you at the end of the talk. Yeah. So the deal is this. So what do we do with these saboteurs, right? We have to find a way to intercept them, and that's what we talk about in building your saboteur interceptor muscle. So your saboteurs generate all your negative emotions, including stress, anxiety, self-doubt, anger, avoidance, procrastination, insensitivity, and discontent. So mental fitness requires the ability to intercept and discredit the saboteurs. How do we do that? Well, the first thing is you got to know who the saboteurs are that's in your suite, what's troubling you most. And then, of course, you got to be able to start labeling them, yeah? Now, this is the neuroscience of habit formation. When an event happens, we can either choose to take the action guided by the saboteur, which is the negative emotion, which still gets you some results, but you don't get the happiness and wellness, or you can use the sage with the positive emotion and get the result. Whichever path you use will build a neural pathway. So when you start intercepting your saboteur, you are depleting that pathway and building up the other muscle, basically. So you're weakening the saboteur muscle, basically. Yeah. So how do you do this? Well, think of a time, when you reimagine a past situation where you were actually hijacked by your saboteur or the negative emotion. And when you reimagine that, and then you decide, okay, what is the positive emotion I can work with to give me the better result? When you keep doing that on the basis of reimagining some past event and then making a different choice or the sage choice, you're actually building neural pathways, rebuilding neural pathways. And that's one of the ways that we actually build mental fitness, is by weakening the saboteur muscle, basically. Yeah. So the next one is the sage muscle. Your sage is the one in you that handles challenges with a clear and calm mind and positive emotions. It also has access to 5 primary powers. And through factor analysis, what they found was that there's really 5 primary powers that you can work with: empathy, exploring without judgment, innovate or creativity, navigate is about staying true to your purpose and meaning, and activate is taking action. So for peak performance, you learn to boost all 5 powers and know when to use which power. Yeah. Now, the sage muscle lives in the region of brain associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, big picture. And it operates with the sage perspective. And this is the sage perspective. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. Now, as far as Christopher Jude just now was saying that, he went through that tremendous challenge, right? And yet he could see that gift and opportunity, that, to reconnect with his higher purpose, to reconnect with what he's brought into this earth for. And because he could do that, he took that as an opportunity to deepen that and to build on it, basically. Yeah. And when you do that, of course, then you are working with your positive emotions and you are moving away from the negative emotions. So whenever we get into the fork in the road, our choice is, do we use a sage approach with the positive emotion approach, or do we use a saboteur approach? Both can get you results, but the longer term, the sage gives you the sustained results and sustained happiness, basically. Now you see in the middle there, PQ, rep, pause, and choose. I'll talk about it shortly, yeah? That is the other discipline you need to have to help you make those choices. So the saboteur says, this is bad, the situation is bad. That's the perspective of the saboteur. Whereas the sage says, this is a gift. So the big difference in how you approach situations. Like for me, during this COVID situation, I found that the COVID situation was the gift for me. The gift that I got was that I really got very, very good getting online and doing coaching online and using Zoom and spending more time on technology, which I didn't before, because I normally do face-to-face work, you see. So with the COVID situation, and a lot of you also might have the same experience in the sense that you learn a lot of new things during this period, right? Yeah, and during this period also, I had a bit more time to myself, and I probably read about, 5 or 10 books. I can't remember now how many, yeah? So the question is this: which perspective is true? The saboteur says this is bad. The sage says this is a gift. The answer is whichever you believe becomes true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you believe the saboteur and he says this is bad, then you're just going to, strengthen that negative emotion pathway, and you're still going to get repeated saboteur or sabotaging of your own activities and results. And if you use the gift or the sage gift, and you find a different pathway from that. So whichever you believe becomes true. So the choice is, how am I going to use the sage muscle? How am I going to see the gift and opportunity in every challenge that I encounter, as opposed to say, oh, this is bad, or that is evil, or that is not good for me. Yeah. And then, of course, developing the 5 sage powers. And tonight, I don't have enough time to go into the detail of the 5 powers. The other one is a self-command muscle. Now, what is this? We call it positive intelligence or positive intelligence quotient repetitions, yeah? To boost your self-command muscle through PQ reps, you establish a routine of starting the day with a 2-minute focus and taking a 2-minute rep. Now, I'll give you what it means by repetition, yeah? So now, everyone, I can't see everyone here. We say 10 seconds of focused attention on one physical sensation. Now, I'd like everyone to just take your forefinger and your thumb and put it together and rub them together with so much attention that you can feel the ridges on the fingers. Do that. Can you do that? Rub them with so much attention that you feel the ridges on the fingers. Now, when you were doing that, you were not having other thoughts in your mind, right? You were just focused on that itself. So when we talk about building this command muscle, you are activating the sage brain. Because what is a thought? A thought that we have is always focused on something that happened in the past or something that's going to happen in the future. And so we miss the present. But when you can keep your mind the present, you are actually, from MRI scans, you're actually building up your positive emotion network. You're building up your sage brain, basically. And this is one of the practices you can do. Just, if you feel a negative emotion coming up, you just pause, rub your 2 fingers together and pay so much attention on that you can feel the ridges and everything else goes off. Yeah. So that's one practice you can do. Of course, there is a traditional practice that some of us have been doing, and that is called meditation, right? Meditation is a way of just keeping your mind present. So we're talking about the practice of mindfulness now. Now, there are other ways of doing mindfulness. For example, when you're having dinner, have you ever sat down and having a meal, and have you ever paid full attention to the meal, the colors on the plate, the taste of every bite that you have? Or are we eating our meals with a handphone, you see? Yeah? So the practice of mindfulness can also be done there. And for some, when they go do gardening, they can pay so much attention to the gardening. That's also being very mindful, because then your mind is not filled with thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future. Yeah. And all of these activities actually builds up your sage brain, or your positive emotional brain, basically. Yeah. Now, how much of that should we do? Well, the key is this. You want to get to the 3-to-1 ratio of your positive to negative emotions. Or in our case, we say that when you do about, 36 to 100 repetitions per day, you are building up your positive emotional brain or your sage brain, basically. And that's the simplicity of the operating system, yeah? If you're feeling negative emotions, your saboteur is acting up. So the alert for you is this: whenever you feel a negative emotion, you know you're in saboteur mode. Then you have to decide, how do I intercept the saboteur, right? So the way to intercept the saboteur is to label it and identify, is it the controller, is it the stickler, is it the avoider, is it the victim, whoever it is, or hyper-rational. Just labeling is exposing the saboteur and give you that pause to choose the sage way, basically. Yeah. So the biggest thing about the saboteur interceptor muscle is to be able to use the negative emotion as an alert to you that you're out acting from the saboteur. Yeah. So negative emotions are useful from that perspective. And then we say, do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and activate the sage. So you can, just put your fingers together and rub them so that you pay attention to the ridges on the fingers, and that will quieten down the negative emotion, basically. Yeah, so it's one technique. But of course, as you do this on a daily basis, you build the muscle, you build the fitness to be able to quieten down the saboteur. First, of course, to label it and identify it and expose it, and then it will be quietened down. Yeah. And I'm finding that for me myself anyway, in terms of the stickler, when I get the stickler and I sort of, getting frustrated about detail, then I ask myself, wait a minute, what am I doing here? I pause, and then I can switch over and say, okay, is this detail important? Is it in the 20% or the 80%? And can I let it go or not? Yeah. And then to take the sage perspective that every problem can be converted into a gift and opportunity. Every problem that we encounter can be converted into gift and opportunity. But if we keep saying that this challenge or this circumstance is bad, we'll never be able to see the gift and opportunity. There's only one exception though, by the way. Yeah. When someone is grieving for someone they just lost, right? I mean, don't go and say, what's the gift and opportunity for that situation? That's ridiculous, right? Because grieving is not a negative emotion. Grieving is honoring and showing love for the person that you've just lost, basically. Yeah. So that's the exception to this. And you generate the gift by using the sage powers like empathy, curiosity, and all those positive emotions that you can feel, basically. Yeah. So is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage response, even in tough challenges? What's the answer? Yes, but the speed and depth of the shift depends on your mental muscle strength. So it does take work over time to build the mental muscles so that you can do it quickly. Because if you are just starting, of course, then you stay a bit longer in negative emotion, take you longer to get out of it, right? So success requires intense initial practice. Yeah. And you can't defeat a gang of 10 bandits or wolves by sending one new fighter per day for 100 days. So what it takes about 15 minutes to 20 minutes every day doing this, mindfulness practice, whether paying attention to your meal or paying attention to every different sensation that you can. For example, you can sit down for 5 minutes and listen to all the sounds around you and just paying attention to the sounds without judging or evaluating them, just listening for what they are sensing, right? You do it for 5 minutes each time, and you do it for 3-4 times a day, and you cover that period already. Or you can even sit down and feel all the sensations you're feeling in your body and just sensing the sensations and without judging or, evaluating them, just feeling and being present with the sensations. Do that for 5 minutes, or, you can sit down for 12 minutes longer, it's better. And that will build up your sage muscle. Yeah. And within 6 to 8 weeks, you'll find a new calm, clarity, and focus building up in you. I'd just like to show you this video now, yeah?
There is a tug of war inside your head between your saboteurs and your sage. Everyone has the judge saboteur, and then depending on your personality, 1 or 2 other saboteurs with names like controller, victim, avoider, or pleaser. On the other side, your sage has 5 great powers that are mostly untapped. you can easily learn to weaken your saboteurs and build up your sage. This increases your positive intelligence or PQ score, which is a measure of your sage versus saboteur power. And I'll show you research that shows your PQ score is very much tied to your level of performance, how much of your potential you actually reach, and how happy you are in life. And that if you want to increase performance or happiness in a sustainable way, either in yourself or in teams that you lead, your best bet is to focus on how do I raise the positive intelligence score. The special thing about lecturing at Stanford is that this is where it all started for me. We are equally screwed up. You are kind of right now aware of the fact that actually your mind does some crazy stuff. It does some really stupid stuff. I used to think that because I am an Ivy League trained person and have been successful in math and science and psychology and all that stuff, I used to think, well, this is a well-trained brain, right? I should respect it. Everything it produces is good stuff. It came to me as quite a shock that actually that is not true. That actually this well-trained brain does some really good stuff and does some really nasty sabotage. What saddens me is that most adults that I work with have become a shadow of themselves. They are tapping only into 20% or less of their true power and true potential. They have forgotten who they were. And the thing that excites me most about positive intelligence is that I'm helping people remember how amazing they are. And I'm giving them access back to their own great powers that they forgot they have. There is a
So mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive rather than negative mindset. And only 3 core muscles are at the root of mental fitness. The saboteur-interceptor muscle, we talked about that and how you intercept all those saboteurs. The sage perspective and 5 powers, sage perspective about seeing the gift and the opportunity in every challenge and the 5 powers. And self-command muscle is about, you running your brain rather than your saboteur running your brain, basically. Now, how do you get fitness built up in you? Actually, there are 3 requirements that needs to happen. And as Christopher Jude shared his experience just now, you can see that there are a couple of things here that were very strong in his experience, right? The first requirement to be able to have a sustained practice is to build relationships with people, new knowledge, new methods and processes, which means that you either have an accountability group or you have a coach or mentor. And in Jude's case, Christopher Jude's case was that he had his family supporting him quite a bit. He had the doctors and friends that he could, kind of count on. And, that kind of kept him going all the time, and then you got to have learn and practice new skills. For example, intercepting your saboteur, doing the PQ reps, just either paying attention to every sensation that you have or paying attention to the bodily sensations and doing it for 15, 20 minutes every day, or paying attention to the sounds that you hear, or, just being mindful about the meal that you're eating. Or sometimes when you're doing gardening, paying full attention to your gardening and doing it on a consistent daily basis, basically. And the reframe, of course, is about the meaning, basically. And for Christopher Jude, the biggest thing that drove him there was that he had this, rekindle his meaning and purpose in life, his higher purpose in life. And he was so connected to that purpose that he just kept on going and kept on going. And that gave him all the mental muscle to come through that kind of a challenge, So, just to make myself available to any of you who want to know more about this session or this building up your mental fitness, you can take a screenshot and you send me an email if you want to know more, and I can give you more information on this practice, So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to encourage you now to just start those practices, intercept your saboteur muscle, go to the website positiveintelligence.com, and there is a saboteur assessment you can do to find out your saboteurs. There's also an assessment for your positive intelligence score. Or you can go to Barbara Fredrickson's website, positivityratio.com. And start now to live your true best self and be your best version of who you can be. And develop your mental fitness before the unexpected challenges come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you for this very detailed and very precise presentation. So I'm going to invite the audience to ask questions using the chat, which I will refer back to Anthony. I will first ask this first question to Anthony. So you mentioned at the end of your presentation how it related, how basically mental fitness related to Christopher's recovery and how he connected to basically his higher purpose in life. However, you in your presentation, you mentioned as well that you need a lot of preparation to be mentally fit. So how do you explain that?
Well, Christopher always had his purpose in life, and that's why he's doing what he's doing today, right? As he spoke in the introduction, he talked about how much he enjoyed what he's doing, how he was making a difference to all the people. So he was doing it already. Mm-hmm. And he used that mental muscle to take him through this big challenge, essentially. So it is not, you're absolutely right. It's not that it suddenly came up that the purpose, can pull him through, but he was there all the time for him. And he just reconnected with that. And that's why it worked for him, basically. I mean, if someone didn't have any purpose before and suddenly grabbed a purpose, that could even happen. Yeah. But yes, so at the end of the day, it's that purpose that takes you there, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's pick this term, higher purpose in life. Having a higher purpose in life means that the individual has a number of clearly identified principles that the individual tries to live by during his life, which means that there is a sense of good and evil, which brings me to the point where, you mentioned that negative emotions, you are talking about a number of negative emotions with the exception of grieving. Now, question that I might ask is that when you experience a negative emotion such as anger in front of what can be seen as an injustice, or something which is totally intolerable, based on these principles and of good and the sense of good and evil. Let's say, and this was a question that came from the floor from Regina, about when you're confronted to domestic, physical, sexual abuse, violence, bullying, for instance. Isn't, in this case, anger a positive, in fact, force that leads you to act and redress what is seen as something intolerable?
Excellent question. Yeah, I think there's a lot of us are faced with that, that dilemma, negative emotions can drive us where we need to go, because we don't have that push, we don't go, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're not saying that negative emotions don't get you there. They do get you there, but they do get you with a lot of high cost, basically. So what the SAGE does, the SAGE approach is basically framed by what we call blameless discernment. Having positive emotions doesn't mean condoning injustice or condoning wrongdoings, but it's recognizing the injustice and the wrongdoing with blameless discernment. Basically, putting your mind in a state where you can actually take the right decisions. For example, number one, of course, having the empathy, the 5 SAGE powers, right? Having the empathy first, because, we know that whenever we get hit with a very big negative emotion, we will definitely get distracted from what we really want to achieve. And I guarantee every one of us have experienced that. You want to do something and then you get interrupted, or you get angered by someone, or you get a phone call, get you angry and all, get you negative, you lose your focus, right? And that's really a high cost, basically. Yeah. So the 5 sage powers is about first having empathy and then exploring without judgment. What is the next best step? I mean, for example, in during the COVID period, there's a lot of abuse happening, right? In increase in domestic abuse and all of that. So if you're all caught up with the emotion, you will not be able to take the proper action. Whereas if you just, quieten the saboteur and the negative emotion, it's okay to feel the negative emotion, but don't hold on too long. So it's alert and say something needs to happen. So you have empathy for yourself first. Your self-love will tell you, okay, what do I need to do now? So explore the different possibilities that you need to do, different ideas, and then connect with different people. Yeah, so that's what it is really. It's not about condoning the injustice or anger. It's about approaching with blameless discernment as a sage, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. So I have another question from the floor. So how do we manage individuals who are constantly bogged down by the 10 wolves and they always drain others so much? So it's not easy to ask them to do the simple stuff to build up the stage. So how do we handle these?
Okay. Interesting question. The good news is this. Yes, we talked about the 10 wolves, and the master wolf is the judge, and then there are 9 accomplices, right? Typically, when you do that analysis, you'll find that really there's 1, 2, or 3 wolves or saboteurs that are stronger than all the others for anyone, basically. And so you deal with that. You don't have to deal with really 10 wolves, but the main one you deal with, of course, the judge all the time. Yeah. Now, so what if someone in your midst is consistently sabotaging you, whether as a controller or as a hyperachiever or hyper-rational and all of that, right? You still want to be able to be on top of that situation by adopting the sage perspective. Yeah. Now, if you're an employer and you have a staff that is always sabotaging the business, and that doesn't mean take the sage perspective and let him continue. No. With a sage perspective, you can use blameless discernment and call in the staff. And you don't have to, when you use your negative emotions to deal with a situation, you're going to get the wrong decision. And you could make the wrong decision. But when you use blameless discernment and the sage perspective, right? For example, in the extreme case, I could say, what is the gift and opportunity in this situation? Oh, this guy is doing all of this. That might give me good reason why I should let him go. And then I can get somebody new and much better than that. You see? So, there's different ways of handling that. Yeah. So the blameless discernment is very, very important. It's keeping your head together and coming up with the right kind of solutions to the situation, essentially. I hope that answers that question. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So thank you for this, Anthony. I think that I will ask a last question because we're getting a bit over the time. There's a question which is, if you have an unshakable faith in God and you know that God will help you, will that be enough to overcome your negative emotions?
Okay. Does that mean that you don't have to worry about negative emotions? I don't understand the question specifically.
Let me repeat it. If you have an unshakable faith in God and you know that God will help you, will that be enough to overcome your negative emotions?
Okay. So do you have, so God will take care of everything for you? I don't know. Yeah. But, I used to be a practicer of religion, but I don't do that anymore. Not because of anything, but because I see it differently. The higher self, the higher being that's there, right? My belief is also that, the higher being is giving you a human experience. How are you going to deal with a human experience with the higher being supporting you, right? So you still have to take action. You still have to do something about your own life of getting in the right direction, not getting to the negative all the time and destroying everybody else around you with the negativity, basically. Yeah. So the higher self demands that you also have the best human experience, because I heard someone say that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Now, if you look at from that perspective that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, that means you want to make that human experience the best experience it can be for you and for everybody else around you. Which means that yes, you are guided by your beliefs in God or any higher being, but you still have to take the action and make sure that you deal with the negative emotions or negativity that comes up, and you work on the positivity, basically. Yeah, that's what I believe essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this, Anthony. If you had to basically summarize your message in a few words to the rest of the audience, what would that be?
Start now. Okay. Start now in the simple practice of just being mindful with regards to anything that you're doing, but start with just being mindful to your meals 3 times a week or 1 time a day or everything like that. Being mindful with sensations in your body for 5 minutes on a daily basis. You'll be amazed that within 6 to 8 weeks, you'll find a different calmness and clarity and focus coming into your physiology. Yeah. And that's how you do it. Once you get started, and then find peers and friends that can get together, because that's important. The relationships of other supporting groups, accountability, and connect with your meaning and purpose. And that's how you get it going. It got to start now, basically, because it's going to take time. The muscles take time to build. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And I pass the floor back to Mohammed.
Oh, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Anthony. Thank you all for speaking. Now, can I invite our friend Casey? Casey, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you ready? The floor is yours to thank the speakers.
Thank you. All right. Very good evening, ladies and gents. This evening's session has indeed been very, very informative and also intriguing for all of us here, fellow Rotarians and guests. It gives me great pride on behalf of the Rotary Club of Pantai Valley to thank each and everyone in appreciating and reiterating Rotary's drive towards the betterment of livelihoods near and far here in Malaysia and worldwide. Tonight's special thanks goes out to our 2 speakers, Mr. Anthony Pinto and the guest speaker, Mr. Christopher Jude Anthony, past president of Rotary. Thanks also to my fellow Rotarian, Eric, for his role. It is evident from the spate of questions posed that both Mr. Anthony Pinto and Mr. Chris Jude Anthony kept us all wanting to know more and could relate with them sympathetically and empathetically. Whilst I was listening very, very intently, much of it, and I would think for some of you as well, that some aspects of what was revealed within the talk by the 2 of you was somewhat of a deja vu, because we feel we could relate as though we had been in that kind of situation before, although not in actuality, All right. Now, I'd like to share a story. Some years ago, I had come across a book called The Agony and the Ecstasy. It was a biography of the Italian sculptor Michelangelo, famous for his sculpture on stone of Hercules, and another one of the young lad David, of the famed David and Goliath legend. All right. It gave a spellbinding account of Michelangelo's life from boyhood through to his last days. Now remember, way back then there was no internet, no TV, no social media, etc. But the power of one's mindfulness. What I and many of us would have learned from this is Michelangelo's steadfastness and single-mindedness to pursue his art form to perfection despite all the trials and tribulations that he had to go through. I realized, like all of us here, as our speakers have unfolded, that the mind is what truly matters to keep us going, to maintain our equilibrium. And so the old saying, out of sight, out of mind, may not necessarily always be so. As Mr. Christopher Jude Anthony, who went through a traumatic episode when he was diagnosed for COVID-19, a very grave predicament revealed to us was that his focus and craving for his family and food came first. So, sir, might I add, hey Jude, don't let yourself down. The mind really is our best friend and should be guided and molded in its best form to achieve positive, beneficial results. Thank you, dear speakers, from all of us here. A round of applause, ladies and gents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tanker, Casey.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, if you need support, I think somebody will help you to share screen about where you can get the support. Yes.
Wow!
Okay. Take a next snapshot or take a picture. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we end, can I invite can I say that for December, I was told that there will be no third Thursday talk. It was December is a holiday for all of us, and it resume 14 on January. So can I have the photographer to conduct the photo session?
Okay, thank you, Chief Mohammed. Okay, everybody, can you have your videos on so we are able to see you clearly and take your picture with your amazing smile. So stop rubbing your fingers. You can do that later. So for the moment, just give us your best smile while we take all your pictures. Hang in there. Keep holding your smile. Okay, hang on. One more coming up. Next screen, because we're not sure which screen you are in. Okay, thank you so much. You can go back to rubbing your fingers. Thank you. Back to you, Mohammed.
All right, thank you, Darren. Can I invite the person who's going to organize the next third Thursday talk? Is she around?
Mohammed, can we do the feedback poll after this, the sharing too, yeah?
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Wow!
If you see the next one, these are the past ones.
The past one, yeah.
Yeah, just saying the last 13 that we've been doing up to today, So in December is going to be a holiday. So we're just sharing that these have been our achievements for almost more than a year. Every month, without fail, we've been bringing up some content for mental health initiatives.
Okay, good. Now, who's the next organizer for the third Thursday talk?
Okay, the next one, we don't have one for December. It's going to be a holiday. Before we end, we're going to do a quick poll of how was for the feedback for today's webinar. It's going to be on your screen. Just give us your input now. Thanks. Still coming, another 15 seconds. Okay, thank you everybody for the sharing. This is the results. So I believe a lot of you found it very interesting. Thank you for that. And back to you, Encik Mohamad, for the closing.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for tonight. And, well, I have nothing else to say. So, Jude, you'd like to say something before we close?
No, we just closed the.
Because the car has already been put up for bid and so some.
Okay, that's all, Encik Mohamad. We close officially.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Just thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, everybody, for your attendance and cooperation.
thank you,
on the
Mama.
questions. All right. Okay, all the speakers. Good night.
Recording stopped.
Mhm.
Okay, everybody can unmute yourselves. You've been silent enough and say all. Yeah, now it's time to exercise our mouth.
Just now my mic was
muscle.
gone halfway.
Yeah, I thought suddenly you froze. You said, Dr. Dixon, you kept playing with your fingers.
My mic was froze. They stopped my mentor not to talk.
I think the speakers did a fantastic performance today. I'm very grateful to you all to come and support us. The District Action Group of Mental Health Initiatives is strengthened by your presence, by your commitment, by your input. And we're sharing it. We're sharing this recording to all and sundry. Thank you so much, Christopher Jude, Anthony Pinto,
Thank you.
to Mohamad. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, the organizing team. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Much passion.